Today on the Uncomfortable Podcast with Jeffrey Gabriel, we dive into Chinese negotiation strategies, their culture, and of course, domains. Our guest to do it with is Kris Hou. Kris and I have worked together for 7 years, and he's best known for such sales as Cool.com, Fancy.com, Perfect.com, KE.com, the list goes on. Kris is going to give us some valuable insights into the Chinese buying behaviors, cultural differences, and of course, a little bit of the Chinese involvement, of the government's involvement. But before we begin, please make sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. You can watch us on YouTube. You can also visit saw.com/podcast, or you can always send us an email to buzz@saw.com. And thank you for listening. All right, today on our show, we have a domain broker, Kris Hou, who we have worked together for just under 7 years. He's worked with me here at saw.com for 3. Kris initially started his career selling insurance for Prudential Insurance in China, and he's been born and raised in China to a military family, and he moved around China quite often as a child, and then moved to England, Manchester, England for college, and pretty much never left. Getting right into it, being a domain broker, Kris has worked on countless different opportunities with me. He has sold tens of millions of dollars worth of domain sales, and I thought talking to him about the Chinese market, the perception of the Chinese towards certain domains and what they like, what the meanings are of certain things, of letters and numbers, and then going over his resume a little bit with you to show you of his experience. So some of the names that he has sold while we've worked together are Cool.com, Comment.com, Perfect.com, KE.com, Virtual.com, and even Fancy.com. Those are all really great names, one word, .com, powerful names worth hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. But they're not all winners, and you've sold many of $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 sales as well. And your $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 names are obviously the most common, which a lot of the times take the most amount of time and the most amount of work. So I'm going to get right into it with you, Kris. Now that you've been selling domains for 7 years and working with being fluent in English and fluent in Mandarin, one of the things myself, as being in the domain business for now almost 14 years, was surprising to me was when I got into it and starting to deal with people in China and the way that they negotiate and the way that they approach different opportunities. And one of the things that always made me scratch my head is why is it that if somebody wants to buy a domain name from China, from somebody from, say, the United States or Canada or someone like that, that either themselves will pretend that they're multiple people, or they will hire multiple brokerages to all converge on the same domain name at the same time? What is the thinking and the strategy there? Because in the United States, if I'm a domain owner, I would think, holy shit, there's a lot of people who want to buy this. I better raise the price, or I better wait it out to see what people do. All of those are not beneficial to the person in the end writing the check for the domain name. So why does a Chinese buyer think that is a good strategy?
Yeah, good question. So basically, I think that's part of the culture. I think it's not just Chinese culture; it's more like Asian culture. When people are buying something, they always want to compare prices. They always use those. I'm sure you get it a lot, like comparison website in the US. Like if you're buying home insurance or car insurance, you just try different companies and get different quotes. Same as buying domain name. And then buyers, they always want to try to use different brokers and then get a domain name at whoever quotes him the lowest possible price. He'll use that broker and get a domain name. That's just a simple way that Asians. It's sometimes it's not most. I think most of the scenarios is not helpful. It's kind of give this seller a feeling that there are many buyers interested in acquiring the domain name. I gotta raise the price or do a bidding war, but in the end, there's only maybe just one or two buyers there. But this thing is like deep in the culture. Even myself, if I'm buying something on, let's say, on Alibaba, I talk to different shops, ask for discounts and all the time, all the time. Yeah,
So, but the thing is that the difference is if you're going to buy a television and you look at least in the United States at Best Buy and you go look at Target and you look at Walmart, and even if it's all the same Sony television,
yeah.
it's obviously up to them to. They might have promotions with the manufacturer, or
Hmm.
they are willing to make a lower margin on the sale,
Hmm.
but there is in essence an unlimited number of those TVs to choose from. And so going and offering, making bad offers at all three of those places don't really affect the price of the TV. It's a
No,
question of whether the
you're
retailer
right.
is willing to make nothing on the sale or lose money on the sale
Hmm.
to get the sale. But
Yeah.
the difference is if there's only one TV to be had in all the land and everybody's going to the guy who owns the only TV, and then making all these offers from all various places and IP addresses and companies and places like that, don't you think that that would make the seller kind of shut down and make the
Yeah,
price not as favorable? I mean, I would think the outcome is, it's hard to break culture, right? Because that's people. I guess people don't think into it as that much because we're on this side of the fence. But thinking about it that way, kind of leaves me scratching my head, right?
yeah. It's a little bit annoying sometimes. We or we represent the seller most of the times. We knew that the broker is trying different ways to try to get this domain name, but I mean, if they believe this works, we just have to let them waste a bit of time and then and then give up different brokers and then choose one broker to talk to us. And then that's it. Yeah,
Understood.
yeah.
All right, so moving on, and typically from what we've experienced with the Chinese market in general, is
Hmm.
that they really like one word.coms that are pretty popular words in the English language, like cool.com that you sold to a Chinese company,
Yeah.
um, and many other single words that are normal understood words in the U.S. But at the same time, is again something I didn't understand when I got into the industry, is the Chinese culture is wrapped around a lot of numbers,
Hmm.
and the culture is also various letters in strings that don't really make sense to people from the English speaking culture, right?
Hmm.
And so when
Hmm.
you see those letters together, it's an unpronounceable string of letters, right?
Hmm.
Whether it's two, three, four, five letters, and it means nothing. And even if you were to pronounce those letters out loud in Mandarin, a lot of those times wouldn't make a lot of sense, but phonetically, they mean something. So why don't you tell us a little bit about numbers and how they relate and how much they mean in the Chinese culture, and then we can get more into the alphabet and the letters next.
Yeah. So generally, numbers is deeply attached to the Chinese culture as well for thousands of years. I mean, I don't want to go into too much details. Obviously, we can talk about this for like probably a few hours until tomorrow. But
We got
I'll
all the
just
time in the world. We got no limit on the podcast. Let's go.
yeah. So I just want to share some simple, interesting, facts. Like number four. So means death because it has the same pronunciation as death in Chinese. So people don't really like number four, especially the fourth floor or the 14th floor or
Hmm.
24th floor. It's just normally the fourth floor and 14th floor will be on any apartment buildings or even like commercial buildings it will be empty, or just leave it as a storage thing. So nobody wants to work there. um there's no even like a 14th or a
So
button.
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So in the US, 13th floor in a lot of hotels and other commercial buildings don't exist. So
Okay.
it's a similar thing, right?
Yeah, it is.
Um, but the number three isn't considered bad in the US, right? But
Okay.
you're telling me that in China, if you have the fourth, the 14th, the 24th, 34th, 44th going on, having a floor ending in four is not a good idea, right?
No.
So do they skip the fourth, 14th, 24th, 34th, 44th floors like
um
every time there's a four?
Not everybody want to skip this, but if it's a business owner, it seems it's not a lucky sign. People would tend to go to the sixth floor, eighth floor, or ninth floor, and try to stay away from the levels got four involved, especially 14th. It's like it means like going to die.
And
So
what does four mean?
so it's still not very good, but if I'm a business owner in China, I skip fourth floor. I'll stay away from there. I'll go to third or fifth or sixth, which is I preferred. Um, you know, I, it's just a bit of a culture thing thinking.
And then in the Chinese culture, would even though say I'm building a commercial building,
Hmm.
and you have the first floor, second floor, third floor, fourth floor, like in the real plans. But if it
Hmm.
goes first, second, third, fifth,
Hmm.
but people know it's the fourth floor,
Yeah.
will they still skip it and still want the sixth over the fifth because they know it's the fourth and they know that after the third floor things are all off? Or is it really just the number that makes it unlucky?
They will build fourth floor, but you probably a low roof floor, and then for storage purposes only. Like I said,
Oh, really?
yeah,
Okay, they put all
yeah,
like the AC units in there or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly, yeah. Like and they'll put like different stuff in there, and then on 14th floor, I think on most of the residential buildings there won't be a 14th floor.
Okay. And
Yeah, so
do you think to this day that when people talk about that, they say, "Oh, that's an old wives' tale," or like a black cat crossing your path, or walking under a ladder in the U.S., where 100 years ago people actually believed in some of that crap, but now they don't. They don't really pay that close attention to it. Do you think in China that the newer generations don't pay as close attention to the number four or the meaning of that, or do you think
yeah,
it's an old
yeah, I
person's
think
thing?
they still do. I mean, it's deeply into the culture and in mind. I mean, you get to know this since you start talking and learning stuff around, and then it's deeply attached. I mean, there are people they don't care. I mean, that's fine. I mean, I think I heard of there were people buying cheaper house or cheap apartments on fourth floor, or even they have a 14th floor. They want to buy it for cheap. That makes sense. But
Well,
still,
it's the same
I
as like
skip them.
yeah, it's like the same as my wife doesn't. We were looking at buying houses, and there was one near a cemetery, like right next door, and
No,
she wasn't having it. She's
no,
like, "No, not moving there.
no,
No
I would
thanks."
never.
I was like, "That's your best neighbor you're ever gonna have. What are you talking about?" You know?
I would
All
never
right.
buy a
So
apartment near a cemetery. I would never,
never,
never.
you would never
Not
live
even
next
you
to a
pay me. I
cemetery.
wouldn't leave near there.
Would you rather live next to a jail than a cemetery?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. I
Wow.
live next to a jail.
Okay, so let's move on to some other numbers.
Yeah.
So I know that six is means like wealth and prosperity. Triple six in the United
No, the
States is the
six means
sign of the
luck.
devil.
Eight
Six is
means
luck.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
but in the U.S., triple six is like the devil.
yeah. I know.
So six is luck, and
Yeah,
if you had 666, which is a really strong term,
yeah.
666.com,
Uh-huh.
how would you pronounce it? You just say the same name, same word three times.
Yeah, we'd probably say it like 666.com in
You would say
Chinese.
triple six.
Yeah,
You wouldn't say, how would you say six in Mandarin?
Liu.
Mil, M-I-L?
No, Liu, like Liu.
Lu.
Yeah,
I pronounced that wrong. So Lu, Lu, Lu.
yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah, yeah, online gambling companies would love to have a website like that, but probably blocked by the government in a few months if it's active.
Okay, well, we
Yeah,
can get into that in a minute.
yeah.
So we have 4, 6, and then I've always seen like Chinese restaurants called Dragon 88, Dragon Dynasty 8, stuff like that. So what does 8 mean?
Eight means wealth, which business people love that. I used to work on 18th floor for potential
Hang on one
insurance.
second, Chris.
Yeah,
Hang on.
yeah.
Hey, how you doing? All right, so keep going. I used to work in the 18th floor.
Yeah, I used to work on 18th floor in central Beijing for potential insurance. I mean, you know, they pay a lot of money for the for the floor like every year. So and then Prudential is a British insurance company, and then
Okay,
yeah, they will team up with the City Group in China. So even British have to to take feng shui things seriously in China.
okay,
Yeah.
got it. And do you, at your own personal house, you're talking about feng shui, do you actually have your bed pointed in a certain direction and things in your house in certain ways?
I good question. I mean, I tend not to like the previous thing we discussed. I would never live in a cemetery or close to a cemetery
Yeah,
or within a mile in a cemetery because that's just
okay,
it's not something that my mom always said we have to respect the people that passed away. That's why we don't really celebrate like Halloween in China.
okay.
On the Halloween, there's like we call it more like a ghost festival in China. We burn paper money, like fake money, um, to family members that passed away, and then
Hmm.
we s- we pour wine and bring home cooked food. Um, you know, um, you know to remember them, to tell them we still miss them, and we do things like this. We don't really celebrate like with ghosts and stuff. It's quite an important thing in China. In Asia cultures, ghosts and humans are two different things. You go separate ways. You don't interfere with them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the thing is with the U.S. and Halloween was it had to do with more or less the end of the harvest before the winter.
All right. Okay.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's like you need to be done harvesting your crops, and then it just kind of turned into this party that had to do with the harvest. But then they added in like ghouls and ghosts and kind of
Oh,
commercialized
I
it. I
didn't know
believe.
that. I
I
thought
don't
just
think it was all about. I don't think it was just all about death. It's not like in Mexico a Dia de Muerte where they have the
right.
sugar skulls and things like
Hmm.
that. All right, so let's play a game.
Okay.
I got some dice for my kids. One of
Okay.
their games. I actually have 5 dice, but we're gonna roll. We're gonna start with 3 dice, and we're gonna roll them right now. Actually, let's do 4 first. Let's make it. No, let's do 3 first. Let's make it complicated.
Okay.
All right. So, um, 3, 6, 2, or 2, 3, 6, or 6, 3, 2, or however you want to do it. What would that mean if you had those in order? 2, 3, 6.
Okay. So if it's 236, it's got a six in the end, which online gambling companies would love to have that. And then on the other hand, they call it a really good chip, because 2 times 3 equals 6. With domain names like 236 or 248, is just loved by these online gambling companies in China or
So
owned by.
how would you market that to people that they would know to go to that domain to make it
It's
memorable?
just
Because
a
you're doing a
short.
math problem.
Yeah, it's just a short, easy to remember and catchy domain name. I could never get the what gambling companies really like. But these 236 or 248, they definitely love it. And
So
then, but
even though death is in the middle of the 2 and the 8, they like it because it's 2 times 4 is 8, and
that's
then
right.
8 and 8.
Yeah,
So
it's
that
just
cancels itself out. It's not a bad thing then.
no, no, it's not. If it's just 4-8 or 4-6, um, it it it's still a good one because it's very short, only 2 digit. But it depends on different you know online gambling companies. They always want like 6 or 8 in the end. They love it.
So what about 1? The number 1.
One is less popular, I think, but it's not as less popular as just number four. Okay, so if it's 111, okay, that's really good. 123, really good. Um, you know, but there are still big companies that are using one at the beginning, like 188.com. The company spent like probably $3 million or 2 point something million bought 188.com.
Okay.
163.com is a very popular online news website in China.
Well, I remember when we had pagers in the US, 143 means I believe I love you, right? Does that mean that in Mandarin?
No, I love you in Mandarin will be 520.com.
520.
Yeah, 520. Yeah. So it's yeah, I mean I
Yeah, it means I love you in text. I'm looking at it. Back in the 90s when pages were widely used, 143 was a quick way of saying it. Each number of 143 contains the letters of each word. 1
right.
is love, 4 is you, 3, I don't know. But yeah, there you go.
Okay. Yeah. Good to know that. So
It's
you have
funny how it doesn't translate over because you would think that in the Chinese market they made the pagers, and 100 years before people were using numbers, but then it was created in the U.S. in a different way,
yeah,
right? So it's
it's
looking at
quite
the numbers
different.
on the
But it's good to
keypad on
know
your
that
phone.
you have a number culture as well. That's something pretty new to me.
Yeah. All right. So um, I'm gonna roll a 5 dice right here. Let's
Okay.
see. So at one point, when Kris and I first started working together, the Chinese market got really hot, and at the time, when we worked at Uniregistry, we had a handful of clients that over the years prior purchased and owned a lot of 2 digit .coms, 3 digit .coms, 4 digit .coms, 5 digit .coms, and then 2 letter, 3 letter, 4 letter, and some 5 letter .coms as well. And at the peak of the market, I would probably say it was 2014, 2015 to the Chinese market.
Yeah,
Am I
15
wrong?
or 16. Yeah.
Right. Those names were being sold for considerable amounts of money. And we can get into why they're selling for that and what they're referred to. But let's do one roll of the dice of 5 dice. Let's see how lucky we are today. And
Right.
tell me what it means. All right. One, two, three, four. Oh my God. Look at this. It was, I can't tilt my, let me see my desk here. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm
Oh,
not even kidding.
wow.
Oh, shit. I guess I'm not that lucky. I'm not going to do it, but that's where it is. That's what it says. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll take a
One, two,
picture
three,
of it.
four, five. It just it doesn't have any meanings, but it's a great domain name. I
Yeah.
mean, your hands are hot today. You should go to
One,
casino.
two, there's 4,
Yeah.
there's 3, and
Yeah.
then there's your 5 right there without
Nice.
me changing it.
Nice.
It has no meaning. It's just a good brand. So if we had
It's
one,
just a
two, three,
good
four, five,
brand, catchy, so easy to remember. You know, I mean, I'm sure 12345.com is owned by an online gambling company. I'm sure of it. They'd pay. I think they'd pay at least high five figures for this.
most 5 digit or 6 digit names don't really mean anything these days, right?
No, I mean, if it's 52099, it'll be interesting. That means like I love you forever. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
But the ones that don't really have much meaning or a very broad meaning, they're kind of not. The market for those is what? Just a standard five
yeah,
digit.
just the standard 5 digit 5 number .coms. But these. I mean, actually, yeah. If you talk to someone from the online gambling industry, they'll explain to you more about all these combinations because they
Okay.
they have the idea about how to brand it, how to market it, and then from different ways.
Well, like in the U.S., in the U.S. you have some pretty famous, zip codes are 5 digits, right? So the most famous of them all is Beverly Hills 90210.
All right,
If
yeah.
you own that, that's worth a lot of money. If you had a clothing store named 90210, that would be a great brand in the U.S.
Hmm.
In the United States, New York City's zip code, which I think is not as important as it was before, but being in sales for 20 years now, you get to figure out zip codes and then
Hmm.
area codes on phone numbers, which are 3 digits. Like I would know that 646 is Westchester County in New York, where there's a lot of money. So if you have a sales lead with a 646 number, it's worth something.
Hmm.
617 is metropolitan Boston.
Okay.
212 is New York as well.
Hmm.
Like those are valuable, but like an Arkansas one, typically people in Arkansas don't have as much money as somebody in New York. So instantly you start to learn the area codes where the best leads are from. And so you can just glance at a phone number and know. And same with a zip code or an area,
Hmm.
and those numbers are valuable. All right.
Hmm.
So let's talk about letters.
Yeah.
So letters are similar in a lot of ways to numbers where in the U.S. language in most cases you
Hmm.
say like 3 or 4 letters, which would be considered an acronym that has a meaning in a
Hmm.
lot of ways, like
Hmm.
USA,
Hmm.
right? There's value there,
Hmm.
but the U doesn't mean a million different things, and the S doesn't mean a million different things, and it doesn't usually like flow into something unless it is considered a word.
Hmm.
So I asked you ahead of time for some examples. YMSD.com, you said is domain shop. How
Yeah.
would you pronounce that?
Uh, you don't really pronounce it. It's just like YM means domain. Um,
How would you
it,
say domain in Mandarin?
域名, like
Yuming.
YUMING, like that's like the first letter of domain name, YM. But
So is Ming the word name and you is the
that's right.
word domain?
Yeah, that's right. Good
So
guess.
what's another word that would go with name that starts with Y? Why would you assume that that's domain?
Um, if yeah, good question. If you're from the main industry and you own ym.com, and then that's one of the best domain name you can
Oh,
you
so
can
it's
have.
just associated with the group of people that you happen to be talking to that they should know, but that Y could mean a million other things.
Yeah, that's right. It has probably another 30, 50 other meanings for other words.
So if I have KHSD, it would be the Kris Hou shop.
KHSD. Okay. KH KH means like clients,
Clients,
customers,
customers. See, that's why
meetings.
you're so good at
Like
sales. KH equals customers.
yeah,
And then SD would mean shop,
yeah.
right?
SD has other meanings like weight, like speed, time, uh, lock or feel. There's just so many meanings. I know. Yeah,
That's
don't
wild.
get into details. It's just, unless
So
you want
let
to
me
know.
ask you this, right?
Yeah,
So if someone owned a domain shop
yeah.
or wanted to call a registrar YMSD, which obviously that sounds like a really good shorthanded way or acronym to call, a
Mhm,
registrar or a
mhm,
domain brokerage. But if somebody bought a billboard and put it up in Beijing with just ymsd.com on it or even .cn, like that's pretty much a pointless ad because there's just so many meanings to what that could be. So you would have to then obviously do a lot more further branding to get
yeah,
people to understand what you're offering, right? So
yeah.
it's a very broad keyword. It's almost like owning the domain card.com. You
Mhm,
think of greeting cards, business cards, credit cards,
yeah.
playing
Uh,
cards,
yeah,
like just all kinds of different things, right?
yeah,
Is it that? It's like almost that broad, like a shotgun spray of
yeah,
possibilities,
yeah.
right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. All right. So you guys don't really have, or the Chinese culture doesn't really have vowels, right? You don't really use vowels.
It depends. If let's say if it's vv.com, vvv.com, that's really good.
Victor, Victor, Victor.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good. Like it completely
But
depends on.
V is not a vowel. A,
Oh,
E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y
yeah,
are
okay,
vowels in the U.S. The letter V, you told me, isn't really being used in the Chinese culture
no.
at all either, right? And X, right? Or no, X is being used in the Chinese
Actually
culture.
it's being used, but
Yeah,
actually
go
I
ahead.
mean, because the Chinese culture has combined a lot of like other Asian cultures and even like US cultures and European cultures as well. So people are, the culture is always developing, it's changing, it's going to, it's going to be like quite different from now compared to 50 years ago. So I'm sure like all these vowels are being used in different ways in business, like in branding, in domains, and I think all these vowels are. I mean, the value is definitely slightly lower, but is if you use it in the right ways, it can be very brandable and catchy.
Got it.
Yeah,
Um, so let's go over a couple more quick. JKKL means health and happy.
yeah.
JK in the US means joke. I don't know what the KL would mean, but
KL means like happy. You wanna, if you own jkkl.com, you probably can build a like a kids like show website.
okay.
Yeah, so the meaning could be like health and happy. It's kind of good for the kids.
Okay, so moving on from that, let's go
Yeah,
back to 2015, 2016, 2017.
yeah.
Crypto was really cooking then, going up substantially. There was a lot of, interest in that. The Chinese market was buying mostly, two letter, two digit, three letter, three digit, four letter, and some four digit, and then up to five digit .coms. I saw some people with like six and seven digits for sale.
Hmm.
And what people were doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is they were buying these different names based on the quality that we went over for different reasons. Some were better than others.
Hmm.
And when they would buy that in China, they would call it a chip because they can put their money into that. And then there was always kind of like a value. So, in essence, it was almost like the first cryptocurrency because it went up and down so fast.
Yeah,
And people were able to use them to get money out of China because they
yeah,
could buy it with their Chinese money and then sell it in the United States and have a US bank account and get their money put in there.
yeah.
Or they could just hold on to it as something like a Bitcoin or something like that as well.
Hmm.
But with crypto and different regulations, the Chinese government didn't really have limitations on the amount of money people could spend on domains for a period of time,
Hmm.
right? But then
Hmm.
that changed in the last few years. Am I right about that?
Yeah. So it's it's a bit complicated to explain that, because of the Cold War, what's the Chinese government's doing, on different things. To be honest, I don't want to go into details, but people in China tend to move their properties, or money or their fortunes out of China into, put them into different bank accounts in different countries, like in the UK, in Singapore, in Japan, in Korea, in the US, which is, a lot of Chinese have saving accounts in the US, um,
But
because
also in like Vancouver, we've seen the price of real estate is absolutely astronomical because the Chinese have come in there and bought.
yeah,
It's a very trendy place to buy. We saw when I first started coming to Manchester working at Uniregistry,
yeah,
Chinese investors started coming into Manchester to buy
yeah,
commercial properties and residential properties,
yeah,
and the prices just went through the roof, and so did building, right? So
yeah.
people could get money out of China.
Yeah, actually,
Um,
one of my friends, one of my the a good friend of mine who I met at Prudential Insurance. This guy bought like five. apartment in Manchester. His
So there you
family.
go, because they're well priced and the rent supported it, right?
Yeah.
And it's a good investment for his and get his money out of China. But
Yeah.
recently, to my understanding, China has started to tighten their grip
Hmm.
on the money leaving their country, which
Yeah.
has affected people investing from China in crypto and those buying those four-letter, three-letter, four-digit, three-digit domains,
Hmm.
right? And they put a limitation on a common person without a license of $50,000 a year, right?
Hmm.
So if I wanted to spend $100,000 on a condo in Manchester or use it as a down payment as a standard Chinese or a normal Chinese citizen, I wouldn't be allowed to do that. Is that what is happening there?
Yeah, it happens a lot. I mean, one of I think the most important reason that Chinese are trying to invest internationally is because, you know, the political side of, reasons. The Cold War between China and America, and even the Cold War between China and European, are getting more and more concerns. It's it's hard to explain, but they just don't feel it's a safe environment to invest in China, in all the markets. The currently the stock market, the property market in China are all going downhill
Mm-hmm.
since the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
People are losing like confidence to throw money in there. I mean, a lot of people lost a lot of money in there as well. It's and there are no other ways to invest in China, so that's why people start buying cryptos and buying domain names, and then you know move
So
kind of.
I
Yeah,
would think there's a lot of Chinese citizens that, let's say, you had $50,000 in the bank. Then the idea would be is every week you go and take $1,000 out and hide it under your bed because you're afraid that maybe the government will take it from you. Is there that kind of fear, or is there no fear in that? It's more like your money would just sit there stagnant because there's no
that's
point
right.
of buying.
Yeah, it's more about just losing value. It's not about government taking the money. It's
No,
about
it's
that
not.
stage.
See, that's me as a crazy Westerner saying the Chinese government will just take their money and do what they
Yeah,
want with it.
it won't happen to ordinary people.
Uh-huh. So let's
Yeah,
pretend you're back in China and you wanted to buy a property in Manchester and you
yeah,
could get $100,000 down payment and you're going to get a loan, for whatever amount of money, and you go to send the money. You have to go down to the bank to wire the money. So you're
yeah,
going to go over your limit. So they're going to ask you why you want to send it, and you have to
yeah.
wait for them to say no to you. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, so in China, every citizen will have like 50,000 US dollar limit to wire money out of China every year. So
Okay.
if it's over 50,000, they will ask you, what is this money for? They will asking you about money laundering, questions. And then if you say, I'm looking to purchase a house or a property, a real estate property, some country, they ask you to fill in a form and they want to charge you tax.
Okay,
Um,
but you could still get the money out then. You just
you
have to
can
pay
still
tax.
get the money out, but this was about like this kind of they kind of raised the bar like since about 3-4 years ago.
Okay, so it's
They,
become a lot harder to
yeah,
do.
it's a lot harder. So that's why crypto currencies and domain names are so popular for investors to kind of use them as a tool to move money out of China.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then, so is that on a, like, if I sent 50 grand today, does that reset on the Chinese New Year, or is that 12 months, like, kind of rolling?
like
How does that
12
work?
months.
So what do you mean? So, like, then from
Yeah,
12 months
it'll
from
be like
today,
from January the 1st to December the 30th or the 31st. You can buy 50K out.
got it. So then the
Yeah,
calendar year changes, and then
yeah,
you get another 50 grand, another
yeah.
50
That's right.
grand.
Yeah.
So then what would happen? I apply, you go to you buy this place, and I just say, hey, yeah, I'm buying it with Chris, and I got 50, he's got 50. We both wire there. They're really not going to say much, are they? Because we're
They
under
they
our
will
limit.
they will ask for a contract and then see the details, and then all they're trying to do is stop you buying money out of China. So all they
Got
want to charge you tax for it.
it. Okay.
Yeah. So
Interesting. All right. So moving on from that is one of the things that I've noticed selling domain names to Chinese citizens is that we use escrow.com, quite a bit as an escrow company. We use escrow.domains as an escrow company.
mhm.
Um, why is it that if they're limited, buyers are limited to paying $50,000 a year out, why is it that typically Chinese buyers of domain names are really against paying for domains on a payment plan? I would think that they'd want to pay on a payment plan to spread out, that amount of money. But it seems like whenever we pitch the idea of a payment plan, a Chinese person is adamantly against not doing it. Why do you think that's the case?
Yeah. So I think it's just it kind of made the buyer feel insecure about the whole thing. So normally if it's a payment plan, you do like 30% down payment, and then you pay the rest, let's say within 6 months or within a year.
Mm-hmm.
But for payment plan, they feel like I've paid like 30%, but I'm still not the owner. What if the owner changed his mind and then I can't get my money back, or they want a lot more than the original price we agreed to.
But even explaining that escrow.com holds the domain and they're going to collect
No,
it, or
they wouldn't
they don't
believe
care.
it. They wouldn't
They don't
trust it
believe it.
because
I wouldn't trust it in China either. So I don't blame them if it was the other way around. I'm just
yeah,
curious to know,
yeah.
their
But
feeling.
the other reason is when situations like this, if the seller, let's say, if the seller changed their mind, we probably have to go to the court, and then that means extra cost on the lawyers and international, maybe
Well, they can do the
traveling.
same, but they can do the same in like escrow.com. If they don't trust it when you pay the full amount, can then just keep the money and never transfer the name. I mean, there's that possibility then. It's
Yeah.
still the similar risk.
I
I mean,
know.
it's just drawn out longer, but it's still a similar risk that you're taking, right? Rather
Yeah,
than,
yeah,
but
but
okay.
yeah.
I'm going to go here on a left field question. What language do you dream in? Since you're so well versed in Mandarin and in English, and you speak pretty much perfect English with me, and then obviously at home with your wife and children who are both from China, or all three of them are from China. You speak Mandarin. So when you have dreams at night, what language is it?
I think I speak Chinese.
Do
I think
you?
so. Yeah, because
Okay.
all my dreams, most of my dreams, I think is all about something happened in China when I was a kid or when I was with families, and then I think most of my dreams are in Chinese.
Okay.
Yeah,
And so
I never
being
had a dream that I was wearing like a British like knight armor, swinging a sword, killing a dragon or something.
Yeah, I haven't had one of those yet either. All right, so then let me ask you this question as well. So you've lived in, the Western world in Manchester now
Mhm.
since, college until now. I know you went back for a short period of time, but then
Yeah,
moved back to England. So you've been in England for like 15 or 20 years now.
yeah,
And then you lived in, China for actually less time, if you actually think about that.
yeah,
But you grew up in the military, as I mentioned before.
yeah.
What's the biggest difference for your kids living in England and growing up born and raised there, and you growing up as someone where your dad was in the Chinese military?
Yeah, so yeah, it's quite different to be honest. My dad was born in a small village in Shandong province, China. So his life, if he stayed there, he's going to be a farmer or some construction worker in that small village or in Shandong province for the rest of his life. When he
Mm-hmm.
was 16, he decided to make huge change to join the military, and then he was only 16. Yeah, so he traveled like thousands, over 1,000 miles to a different province, joined the air force, and became a pilot for 5 years, and then start doing like ground officer works after that. my dad was a very strict father. I mean, I can be quite honest with you. He was very strict to me, but I wasn't listening to all his orders. I mean, I'm sure you can imagine. But I remember one of the joke my friend kept mentioning. It's not a joke. It's something happened to me when I was in middle school. That's like seventh or eighth grade in the U.S. We have to do the like 1,000 meter run test to go to high school. My dad was dragging me out of the bed and then run practicing the 1,000 meter run with me every morning, almost every morning. And then my classmates or classmates from other levels, they saw my dad kicking me in the butt, chasing me in the playground, and forced me to run that it was just you don't get too
So
many
he was
parents.
treating you like a recruit. That's what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, like some soldier in the military. Like he's very strict. He doesn't care like who is around. He doesn't. He just
Yeah,
want me to get the job done and then go home. That's it.
got it.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
understood.
All my a lot of my classmates in middle school did remember that moment, and then they kept asking me about how's
Oh,
your
really?
dad? Is your dad still treating you the same way? But I mean, my dad is he's a very good father. Um, you know,
But I know you told me that when you were a little kid, sometimes like the military car would come pick you up with
yeah, all the time.
one of.
Yeah, that's like the military car will drive into my school, pick me up in front of thousands of students.
But it wouldn't be your dad driving; it would be like a
No, it
private or
wouldn't be my
something.
dad. No, it would be my
Yeah.
dad's driver, and then it was
So you were driven around like a general in the back of the military car.
yeah.
And,
I kind of yeah, I took a lot of advantage of that sometimes. They the military cars can go through the red lights. They don't have to stop.
okay.
And then they can drive on a one way traffic road. You know, I'm not proud of this. I'm not proud of this, but I feel like okay, that's just wrong.
But how often are you seeing military cars in and around China driving around? I can't imagine you see them that often. I
You
mean,
don't
in the
see
U.S.,
that
you see
too
them every
much.
once in a while.
Yeah,
What?
you don't see military cars too much on the road, but if it's officer's car, um, they will have special plates like registration plates like AF 001, AF 002. Yeah, so with a military sign on it. So I was I
All
took
right, so let's move on.
yeah.
What are your feelings? And then we'll wrap it up because we're getting right close to an hour, and this is where we want to kind of keep it. Is um, well, most importantly, how can people contact you if they have some questions about their own domains or they want to work with you or talk to you more about the Chinese market?
You can always send me a LinkedIn message. Or just search on Google Kris Hou salt.com. You can find me, or you can email me at Kris@salt.com. So that's Chris with a Kris at SAW.com.
What's
Um,
your WeChat?
WeChat, that's my will be my UK mobile number. So I can share that. I think it's on my LinkedIn or WhatsApp. You can reach me out so many ways.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So before we wrap it up, um, as an American, I listen to a lot of different podcasts, and one of the things that I've been listening to a lot about is social credit scores in China.
Hmm.
Is there a social credit score right now in China? Have you heard about it, or is this a lot of just
Yeah,
propaganda?
they are building a credit system in China. They have been building this for about, I think, for almost 10 years. It's working. I'll give you a quick example. If I Before I moved to Manchester, if I borrowed like 10,000 or 100,000 Chinese currencies in a bank in China, and
Yeah.
then didn't pay for it, pay it back, and then move to Manchester.
Hmm.
So that means if I ever travel back to China, and then police and police department, and then or some local debt department company, they will try to track me down and find me and ask for those money back.
Yeah,
And
they do
I
that in the U.S. too.
yeah, so I could never get on the train if I have a debt on me for like 100,000 Chinese currencies. I could never take
So
a
if you have a
plane.
debt and don't you need to get to work? Like if you can't afford a car, how the hell are you supposed to get to work if you owe someone 100 grand?
Just ride a bike.
Walk, figure it out.
Yeah,
Too tough shit. So they start shutting down social services on you
yeah.
if you owe somebody money. What if you're caught protesting?
Oh, there's no protesting in China. There's
All right. What if you're like a habitual speeder with your car? Does that hurt your social credits? Your social
uh
credits.
that that that's not a criminal record, but if I drink and drive, that's a serious crime in China.
So if I drink and drive, they're going to take away the train, so I can't use that mode of transportation. So I have to drive my car again.
No, you have to just get on public transport like bus,
Yeah, I got it.
tram, and
Do you think it's to the point where they will limit like the amount of television you can watch, or the amount of internet you can use, or what you can look at on the internet for so long? Do you think that that's all kind of in the works?
uh no, that won't affect. But since you mentioned this, with the Cold War going, you know, Chinese government started to put a huge fine on people trying to watch YouTube's, and then or use Twitter or use Instagram. They don't want
Mhm.
people, you know, read information outside of China. They just want you to stick with whatever they're telling you to believe. Um,
So,
you know,
like one of the things that I've talked to one of my friends about is a lot of the new cars these days are having autonomous driving, and then they're connected to the internet and to the car companies.
mhm,
And there could come a day where a senator or president wants to limit the number of miles you could drive and in a period of time.
yeah,
And I mean, imagine you go to get in your Tesla, which is wired into the internet, and you've driven 600 miles that month already, and they believe that anyone who drives over 650 miles, they don't need to go anywhere else, and they're making that decision for you. Or we were laughing. I think I was talking about this like a month ago. Imagine you don't pay your car payment, and then your car just drives itself back to the dealership.
yeah,
So you go outside to get in the car to go to work one day. They didn't pay a repo company to get it. They just had the car drive itself back. Or maybe you're even in the car and the thing just drives right into the dealership and
yeah,
shuts itself off.
yeah,
And you could have like your wife giving birth, and you're racing to the hospital, and the thing just pulls in the dealership, and there you have it. And too bad. So it's just interesting, tinfoil hat stuff that sometimes you think about.
yeah,
All
absolutely.
right, you have anything else to say? Because we're going to wrap this baby up.
Uh, that's it. And thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to have a chance to talk to you about different topics about China, and then apart from work, I'm really excited to hear this online.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. Thanks for coming as always, and always a pleasure, my man.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jeff.